The scent of old paper and leather was Arthur's sanctuary. It was the smell of history, of lives lived and stories told. In his small, book-lined apartment, every volume was a friend. His most prized possessions were not locked in a safe, but sat on a reinforced shelf near his reading chair, a collection of first-edition classics he had spent a lifetime curating. They were his retirement, his dream of a small cottage by the sea where he could finally write his own book. Or rather, they were. Now, the shelf stood painfully empty, a testament to the one story that mattered more to him than any other, his daughter, Chloe. From the day she was born, Chloe had been his entire world. After his wife passed, every ounce of his energy, every dollar from his modest professor's salary went into giving her the life he felt she deserved. He saw a spark in her, a desire for a world larger and shinier than his own quiet academic life. He encouraged it, funded it, selling off a rare book here and there over the years. For ballet lessons, a semester abroad, a down payment on a car. He never told her which book he sold or what it cost him. He simply wanted her to be happy. And now was the pinnacle of that happiness, her wedding day. Chloe was marrying Sebastian, the son of a tech CEO whose world was one of glass towers and silent electric cars. The wedding was being held in a minimalist art gallery downtown, a place of white walls, soaring ceilings, and concrete floors so polished they reflected the cold architectural lighting. It was a world away from Arthur's worn armchairs and stacks of books. He had checked his bank account that morning. The final wire transfer from the auction house had gone through. The sale of his entire collection had covered the last staggering payment for the venue. He felt a phantom limb ache where his books used to be, but seeing the radiant smile on Chloe's face in the photos she'd sent would make it all worthwhile. When he arrived, a valet in a sharp black suit looked at his 10-year-old sedan with a flicker of confusion before taking the keys. Inside, the chattering guests were like figures from a magazine, dressed in tailored silks and dark, expensive suits. Arthur smoothed down his own tweed jacket, his best one, carefully pressed for the occasion. He spotted Chloe across the room, a vision in white, her laughter echoing slightly in the vast space. As he approached, her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Sebastian appeared at her side, placing a proprietary hand on her back. He greeted Arthur with a firm handshake and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good of you to make it, Arthur." Chloe pulled him aside, her grip on his arm surprisingly strong. "Dad," she whispered, her eyes darting around the room. "I'm so glad you're here, but could you maybe try to blend in?" Arthur felt a chill creep over him. "Blend in? Sweetheart, I'm your father." "I know, but Sebastian's parents are here. They're friends, they're investors. They don't understand our background. Your jacket, it's a little..." She trailed off, gesturing vaguely. "Just maybe don't mention you teach at the community college. Let's just say you're a private scholar." Each word was a small, precise cut. He had spent his life teaching, sharing his passion with thousands of students. It was who he was. For the first time, he saw a stranger looking out from his daughter's eyes, a stranger who was ashamed of him. He endured the ceremony from a seat in the back row. He watched his daughter, the girl whose scraped knees he had bandaged, and whose nightmares he had soothed, pledge her life to a man who evaluated people based on their clothing. During the reception, as champagne flowed and a string quartet played a modern, soulless tune, the final humiliation arrived. Chloe found him by a stark white pillar. "Dad," she said, her voice low and urgent, "the photographer is about to do the family portraits. I think it might be better if you weren't in them. Sebastian's mother is very particular about aesthetics. We can take some photos on our own. Later." The word hung in the air between them, an empty promise. He wasn't part of the family aesthetic. He was a background detail to be photoshopped out. He looked at his daughter, at the flawless makeup, the designer dress, the cold ambition in her eyes. The girl he had raised was gone. In her place was a woman who would trade her own father for a picture-perfect life. "You're right," Arthur said, his voice quiet but steady. "I don't belong here." He turned and walked away. No one seemed to notice. He was just an old man in a tweed jacket, blending into the shadows. He didn't stop to say goodbye. He walked out of the cold white gallery and into the evening air, the distant music, a mocking farewell. He got into his car and drove not home, but to his office at the college. The familiar scent of books and chalk dust was a comfort. He sat in the dark, the silence a balm on his wounded heart. He hadn't just been dismissed. He had been erased. He pulled out his phone. He had one call to make, not to a caterer or a florist, but to the auction house. "Hello, this is Arthur Vance," he said. "I'm calling about the wire transfer for the final payment to the Galerie Blanche. There seems to have been a complication. I need to issue a stop payment immediately." "Yes, I understand the consequences. Please, proceed." He hung up. It wasn't revenge. It was a simple correction. He had paid for his daughter's happiness with his life's passion, but he would not pay for her cruelty. The gallery, he knew, had a strict policy. The final balance was due by the start of the reception, or services would be suspended. He had simply withdrawn his funds. The consequences were no longer his to bear. Back at the gallery, the string quartet suddenly stopped playing mid-song. The lights over the gourmet food stations flickered off. A hushed confusion fell over the crowd as the gallery manager, a stern woman with a clipboard, approached Sebastian and his father. The conversation was brief and discreet, but Sebastian's face turned from arrogance to disbelief, then to pure fury. He turned on Chloe, his voice a venomous whisper. "Your father's payment was just declined, all of it. The gallery is closing the bar and suspending service until the balance is paid in full." "What is this, Chloe? I thought you said he had old money." The lie, so easily told, now choked her. The perfect wedding, her grand entrance into this new world, was crumbling around her. The whispers of the guests grew louder. Sebastian's mother looked at her as if she were something unpleasant she'd found on her shoe. Abandoned by her new husband in the middle of the floor, Chloe frantically called her father's phone. It went straight to voicemail, again and again. The life she had so carefully constructed had been a house of cards, and the man she had just discarded had simply walked away from the table. The next week was a blur of shame. Sebastian's family had the marriage annulled before the ink on the license was dry, citing fraudulent misrepresentation. Chloe was left with nothing, no husband, no money, and a mountain of social disgrace. Forced to leave the apartment she had shared with Sebastian, she found herself standing in front of her father's old apartment, the one she hadn't visited in months. The door was unlocked. The apartment was empty, stripped bare. The bookshelves were gone. The furniture was gone. All that remained was a single envelope on the floor with her name on it. Inside was not a lecture, not an "I told you so." It was a list, but not of expenses. It was a list of books. The Count of Monte Cristo, first edition, sold for your semester in Paris. Moby Dick, first edition, sold for the down payment on your car. To Kill a Mockingbird, signed first edition, sold for your wedding dress. The list went on and on, a secret history of his sacrifice. At the bottom of the page, in his familiar, elegant script, he had written, "My dearest Chloe, I wanted to give you the world. I'm sorry that in doing so, I seem to have lost my daughter. The money from the auction has been placed in a trust for you. It's the last of it. Use it to find a life that is truly yours, not one you feel you have to buy. I have gone to find a quiet place by the sea. It's time for me to finally write my own story. I hope one day you will write a happy one for yourself too. With all my love, Dad." The paper trembled in her hands as sobs racked her body. She hadn't been standing on her own 2 feet. She had been standing on a mountain of his sacrificed dreams. It took almost a year of working as a waitress, of living in a small room, of learning the value of $1 earned through tired feet and long hours. She didn't touch the trust fund. Instead, she used her meager savings to hunt through dusty, second-hand bookstores. One crisp autumn afternoon, she drove to a small coastal town, her old car filled with the scent of the sea. She found him in a tiny cottage, the sound of the waves, a constant companion. He looked older, but peaceful. He was sitting on his porch, writing in a notebook. She didn't say a word. She just walked up the steps and placed a worn, cloth-bound book in his hands. It was a copy of Moby Dick. It wasn't a first edition, just an old library copy. He looked from the book to her face, and for the first time in a very long time, he saw his daughter again. Her hands were not perfectly manicured anymore, and there was a weariness in her eyes he recognized. But there was also a strength that had never been there before. "It's not a first edition," she said, her voice quiet, "but I thought we could start the collection again, together." Arthur took the book, his fingers tracing the faded gold lettering. He opened his arms, and Chloe stepped into them, finally home. The story wasn't over, but here, by the sea, they had finally found a new beginning.